Well, Friday marks the second anniversary of the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. U.S. President Joe Biden is planning to give a speech at the White House to mark the anniversary. He is expected to draw a comparison between his administration and the ongoing disunity in the Republican Party, which has so far failed to elect a House Speaker. This anniversary comes even as former President Donald Trump gears up for his 2024 White House bid. And after the Congressional Committee investigating his role in the Capitol attack found him solely culpable for the violence 2 years ago, the committee recommended that the Justice Department bring criminal charges against Trump. To tell us more, we're joined by SABC News Correspondent Nick Harper. Nick, good evening to you and welcome to the program. So many convergent and competitive themes in how this moment, which in some ways is an insidious anniversary, is being marked. Just share with us what the overall sense is, where you are, of what's being said and how it's being commemorated.
Yeah, quite incredible that these two things have come together. The attempt to try and elect a new House Speaker on the same day when we're seeing the second anniversary of the January 6th attack, which took place on the steps of the Capitol building that you can see just behind me. President Biden will be giving that speech in just under 2 hours' time, and he'll also be presenting medals to 12 individuals, including some police officers who were here on the day trying to keep the rioters back, trying to keep them away from the lawmakers who were sheltering in offices inside the Capitol building. And he's likely to use it as an opportunity to draw a distinction between his Democratic Party and the Republican Party, probably saying something along the lines of the Democrats getting things done here in Washington while the Republicans are unable to elect a House Speaker. In the last 30 minutes or so, there has been a somewhat somber ceremony taking place on the steps of the Capitol. Many lawmakers gathering together, some wiping back tears as they remembered the events of 2 years ago in which 5 people died. It is a moment that is being marked, but as you mentioned, a day which is also being marked with chaos, dysfunction and disunity within the Republican ranks.
I suppose to your point, Nick, about what the president is likely to say, one, I suppose, can't avoid the temptation for political point scoring. But, there are huge lessons to be learned from this incident that effectively marred brand authority in the U.S. at the highest level and kind of, laid bare the vulnerabilities, even in high office.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember that storming of the Capitol building 2 years ago by pro-Trump supporters was all about trying to stop the official certification of Joe Biden's win in the 2020 presidential election. Those Trump supporters, even the former president himself, were maintaining and still maintain to this day that President Trump won the election, that it was stolen from them. And there they were trying to subvert democracy, to try and undo what had been done, undo the will of the people. However, they say that it was a fraudulent election, and those claims continue. President Trump, 2 years on, is mounting another bid for the White House. He's running again in 2024. At the moment, he's the only Republican candidate in the race, hoping to gain the Republican Party's nomination, and yet he does not believe that 2020 election was legitimate. So still 2 years on from the January 6th attack, those themes of what exactly happened to democracy and the attempts to subvert it are still running strong here in Washington, D.C.
Well, let's talk about, the selection of a new speaker following Nancy Pelosi's exit. Why is this so important and even more significant given, the current machinations around who gets to occupy that seat now?
Yeah, well, we have to bear in mind exactly what this speaker position is and how powerful it is. It's the third most powerful job in Washington, D.C. It's the second to the presidency behind the vice president. So whoever holds the position of Speaker of the House has very significant, very considerable and influential power. Now, normally the majority party in the House of Representatives, that's the Republicans this time around after the midterm elections in November, should have an easy task of electing a new speaker. But here we see over the course of the last 3 days the problems that the Republicans are having to try and elect Kevin McCarthy, their candidate. There are 222 Republicans in the House. Kevin McCarthy needs 218 votes to get the majority. However, there is a group of about 20 Republican hardliners, very conservative, right-wing part of the Republican Party, who are holding out against him, who are voting against him round after round. So in the last 3 days, we've seen 11 unsuccessful rounds of voting to elect Kevin McCarthy. They're due to reconvene in the House chamber behind me in the next 20 minutes or so. We're expecting a 12th round of voting. Now, Kevin McCarthy has been trying to do deals behind the scenes. There were late-night talks last night. He has offered a number of concessions that essentially would weaken his position if he becomes Speaker and strengthen the position of this small minority of the Republican Party that only makes up about 10% of the House Republicans. It would give them outsized influence and potentially point to what we can expect for the next 2 years while the Republicans hold the majority in the House. And that would be a much stronger right wing of the party, who perhaps will be looking for opportunities to create chaos and disunity as they have done over the last couple of days.
Well, more historical developments underway in the US Capitol, Washington. That's where Nick is joining us from. Thank you very much for sharing that update. SABC News Correspondent Nick Harper.